This video is sponsored by Mark 7 Car Wash Equipment, providing clean, dry, shiny cars for over 50 years. Visit mark7.net for more information.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Unscripted, the video series that connects you with market leaders. Today on our Unscripted video, we're happy to welcome Harry Caruso, CEO and founder of Carwash Advisory. Harry, my friend, it's great to see you. Always great to see a fellow New Yorker. How's life in the Big Apple treating you these days?
Things are good, Rich. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. And it seems like things are somewhat getting back to normal up here. So it's great to see.
Yeah, certainly is great to see. So, Harry, car washes are changing hands a lot these days. Buying and selling is rampant in our industry these days. So wanted to catch up with you and do this video and help some operators out there who are either in the process of looking to sell their car wash or who might be on the fence right now. Maybe some ways we can help them to maximize their businesses multiples as they prepare for a sale. So that's today's topic. And my first question for you, Harry, is when it comes to buying an existing car wash business, what type of valuation multiples are most influential to investors today?
I think there's a lot of ways to dice what is the same end result, right? You can look at it as there's many ways to skin a cat, or there's many perspectives as to all derive and get to the same answer. So to answer your question, Rich, the most naive, and this is really just for a simplistic purpose, not a pejorative or like, oh, this doesn't work as well purpose, just from a simplistic purpose, what you're going to hear referenced most and used most conversationally when talking about valuations is just simple enterprise value to EBITDA or an EBITDA multiple. Truth be told, it's always funny, right? The simplest things are oftentimes when you dig in and you peel back a layer or two, oftentimes the most complex. And this is certainly no exception thereof, because now you have confounding and compounding, really, assumptions upon assumptions. So what are these numbers and how are you deriving them, as well as what sort of multiple is appropriate thereof? So to answer your question, it's mostly enterprise value to EBITDA, but it all triangulates around what is the same sort of end goal, which may be post-sale leaseback, all in multiple, or it could be that of a cash on cash return.
All right. So what are some under the radar ways operators can increase their washes valuation multiples in these areas? How can they really maximize their value when preparing for a sale?
This is going to sound like it's a canned answer, Rich. I assure you it's not, but this is one of the great things about this industry and about when you go to run a sales process and what you may perceive as a logical counterparty market, there's what's truly aligned incentives. So my advice would be run it as if you were going to keep running it forever. Because if you're going to keep running it forever, you're going to make the same decisions, both financially, operationally, managerially, infrastructure-wise, that really contributed to it being, one, as profitable as possible, two, as great of a wash as it can be as possible, but three, any sort of value add, which is value add to you, will be value add to that buyer in 9 out of 10 cases. So is there like a trick where you can all of a sudden, pull out a golden bullet to mask this or change that or inflate one sort of operating metric? No, there's not. Can you, like, let's say you're on the brink of whether or not to do a price increase, could potentially thinking of selling be sort of that straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of being the impetus to actually go ahead and take that leap of faith? Yeah, of course it can, right? But again, I would go back to and revert to the fact that you really should look at those sort of changes, both operationally, financially, and structurally, as if you are going to continue to run it. And Rich, I think, I don't mean to go on a run on here, but I think one of like the biggest questions you could be faced with in this market, and we see it a lot, full serve operators that were otherwise considering converting to a flex or an express. And if they're on the fence about maybe I'm thinking of selling within the next year, 2 months because of what's going on with cap gains, or 5 years, right? should you make that change if you're thinking of selling somewhere down the visible horizon? Well, is it the right move for your wash? That's the answer, right? So I think when all else fails, there is no quick fix to boost multiples or make your wash more attractive. Anybody in this industry knows it's really hard work to make a wonderful operation and a serious wash or multiple wash portfolio and company. So there's no overnight fixes. There's no masks that you can put on. You just got to run it the best you can and make the decisions as if you were going to keep it forever.
Sure. Yeah. And, to the outside investor, Harry, maybe this industry looks like a set it and forget it, I want to say, with the level of automation that's out there. But those of us in the industry know that not all operators are created equally, right? And really knowing the community and having an awareness of the community and demographics and customer needs of the area and their wants is critically important. So beyond multiple, does an operator's post roll or lack thereof really affect how much they can get for their car wash? Do investors prefer one option over the other these days, or is it case by case? We see operators stay with the business. We see operators just ride off into the sunset, let's say. So is there one option that investors prefer over another these days?
I'm so glad you're asking this question, and I hope this answer comes across concisely. And I do have a tendency to convolute things, so I'm going to do my best, because I think we get asked this question all the time. It is absolute paramount for somebody who, like we just mentioned, maybe they're not going to sell today, but let's say that you're going to retire in 3 years, right? Do you sort of take that arm's length approach and take proactive steps to make yourself more distant as an owner and set up that sort of standalone infrastructure? And if so, does that have an implication on valuation? Right? Is that sort of where we're at here?
Right. Correct. Yep, you're understanding correct. Yep.
So here's the thing. Does it impact your valuation? Not so much. Does it impact the liquidity? Incredibly so. So what I mean by this, Rich, is let's just pick and let's just use Mr., right? This has nothing to do with Mr. Mr. is an absolute fantastic company. The amount of news that is and events currently going on with them is for very good reason, and they deserve it, and they're awesome. But let's just use them because they're the behemoth in the space, right? Mr. does not care most of the time, or another strategic operator. It's not make or break if all else is equal and you have an absolutely fantastic site, wonderful team, everything is churning on, all cylinders are firing. Is it going to be a yes or no as to whether or not they're interested, whether an owner stays on? Maybe there are instances where it is, but that's sort of super knowledgeable with their own systems, their own playbook, their own infrastructure. This sort of familiarity and in-depth knowledge of the industry, it's not a make or break if a single owner stays on, because they have that background knowledge which they're coming in for. So it does depend somewhat on the wash, but there's always a buyer out there that is largely agnostic as to the owner's involvement because they have their own playbook that they're walking in with. So what do I mean by liquidity? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot less of those buyers that we just mentioned that have that playbook that they're walking in with, that have that pre-existing knowledge, and that are agnostic as to whether or not an owner operator was there every day from 9 to 5 and staying up late at night and dealing with problems and opening and closing every day, versus somebody who maybe states away for a in-bay self-serve or an express tunnel with a great infrastructure and team set up where the owner's only there once a week. So essentially the actual price you should go and expect from a valuation perspective is not going to be impacted all that much as to the level of owner involvement, but the breadth of market and therefore liquidity, aka expected time to sell, sort of how many suitors you may or may not have on a serious and applicable basis, that will largely be affected by the owner's level of involvement.
So it sounds like it's a case-to-case situation rather than a blanket statement there, right? So Obviously, one of the big things that our investors are drawn to these days with car washing is the unlimited plans and the reoccurring stream of revenue coming into the car wash. So is simply having an unlimited or club plan enough to increase a car wash's value during a sale? If
No.
not, if not, do investors look at such factors as maybe like a baseline of members or current revenue or even potential revenue of these programs?
Yeah, Rich, I'm going to give you an answer that nobody else will ever say, and I mean it in total honest earnesty. But you have to, please you don't jump to a conclusion here. Stick with me, and I promise it's true and it will make sense. All else equal, members are less valuable from a valuation and a sale perspective than non-members, period. Now, the big caveat there is all else equal. So, and I face this question constantly, right? And I think the key to realize is if you were a buyer, if you had, for some reason, let's just run with the parallel universe sort of theory, right? That everything is equal. You have two of the exact same washes, exact same setup. Both of them are doing $1 million in revenue and washing 100,000 cars a year, right? If one's doing it with members and one isn't, which one are you going to pay more for from a buyer perspective?
Members.
No, Rich, no, not at all. Absolutely not, because you still have that lever to pull. You still have that fail safe. You still have that marketing impetus that can drive higher levels of volume. You haven't shown all your cards yet, per se, by not having members. You can still do that, in which case, if you were to flip that switch, undoubtedly, if done successfully and in the right demographic and market and in the right way, that 100 without members will go up to 150. So really, all else equal, on a customer per customer basis, a member is far less valuable in the way of valuation and value to a buyer than a non-member. But it never works out this way. There is no parallel universe, right? And the truth be told is, if you switched my analogy and you had two washes with both with membership, the truth is if you turn off membership, the opposite is true. So you wouldn't be doing 100 without members, you'd be doing 50. So they are valued roughly the same in many regards, but is membership revenue as valuable to a buyer? No, it's less valuable, period. And it should be.
Interesting. That's why I stay in my lane of content, and I don't go in the game of buying and selling washes, I guess, Harry. So it's great to see you. Thank you for spending some time and answering these questions on ways operators can maximize their value out there in the market. Always great to see you, like I said, and thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure, Rich. Thank you for having me.